Welcome to TV Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahawi Kajura, but first are the headlines. High Court has adjourned Segirinya Sewanyana's case to 27th March. Hundreds displaced by fighting a protest in Goma. Ethiopia celebrates victory against Italy invasions. In a sports news today, Gambia-Senegal reached under-20 AFCON final. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. The Private Sector Foundation Uganda has announced the second edition of Women Katale, which is slated for Friday and Saturday, 10th to 11th March 2023 at Uma Multipurpose Hall, Lugogo. Now, it has partnered with the MasterCard Foundation and Young Africa Works Initiative to impact women and girl entrepreneurs. We have more on this report.
The launch took place on Monday at Private Sector Foundation head offices in Kampala. Last year, the Katale was in Ruwero district. Over 100 women entrepreneurs are expected to showcase their businesses as part of the Women's Day celebrations with the aim of extending women's stake in the business space. The Katale recognizes the contribution and potential of women and girls as entrepreneurs. During the Katale, women and girl entrepreneurs exhibit their different products and services for free, network, get marketing skills, and get to sell their products during the exhibition. Speaking during the launch, PSFU Executive Director Stephen Asimwe said the organization believes that women have an important role to play in Uganda's economic development and they want to support them in every way possible.
Because Uganda's demographics, if you look at our population, a big chunk of it is by young people. Over 75% of our population is people under the age of 35. And that segment is occupied by women, but the women have been disadvantaged. And so Katale is intended to look at that critical mass of young women and the women or the youth, but essentially to look at their challenges and how do we support them.
According to Asimwe, 49% of women are admitted to the universities and tertiary institutions across the country every year. However, only 14% have access to commercial loans. 80% of these women, Asimwe says, are in the informal sector. He noted that only 40% women compete favorably in the entrepreneurship space, yet they contribute 50% to the country's GDP. Damali Sali, PSFU's head of programs and projects, says by the end of the Katale, the women and girl entrepreneurs should be able to have contacts, markets, and able to market their products.
The exhibition space is for women entrepreneurs to showcase them, to show the world that women entrepreneurs exist. Women entrepreneurs have wonderful services and products that they want to put on the market. Women entrepreneurs are present, and therefore whoever is designing, even a policy maker, a politician, a technocrat, we want them to know that women entrepreneurs are there and these are their gaps and these are the needs that they have. That's why we showcase women entrepreneurs during the Katale.
The event will also feature networking between entrepreneur, market access, social and business development skills, a one-stop center facilitated by URA, URSB, UNBS, and Finance Trust Bank, a beauty clinic, creative business and tech clinics. Private Sector Foundation Uganda is Uganda's apex body for the private sector. It is made up of over 200 business associations, corporate bodies, and the major public sector agencies that support private sector growth.
Away from that, the High Court again adjourned a case against MPs Mohamed Segirinya and Alan Sewanyana of Machindi West as they are too ill to attend court. We have more on this report.
Justice Alice Komhanji of the International Crimes Division of the High Court ruled that two needed time to get medical treatment. The Kawempe North Member of Parliament Mohamed Segirinya was supported by two men to walk into the court hall. However, Sewanyana was represented by his lawyer Samuel Muyezi Molindwa, who requested his client's passport and permission to travel to Nairobi for specialized treatment, as he can only move by a stretcher. The other suspects still on remand are Jackson Kanyike, Bull Wamala, Mike Serada, and Jude Mwonge, who are represented by Counsel Godfrey Turiam Sima, who the court had is still in Bugisu sub-region, where his partner Counsel Anthony Wameli was laid to rest over the weekend. The matter has now been adjourned to March 27th, when pre-trial proceedings will start. The MPs are accused of terrorism, murder and conspiracy together with one Mike Sarada, Wamala Bulo, John Mugira and Jackson Kanyike concerning the Masakalengo murders of August 2021.
We take a quick break. We shall come back in international news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right channel. In international news, hundreds of those displaced by conflict in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo marched through Goma on Monday demanding aid and improved conditions at camps in Rushuru territory. Now, this demonstration brought socio-economic activities on the road known as 1 kilometer to a halt, with protesters barricading it. We have more on this report.
Several displaced people living in the Kanyaruchinya site in Nyiragongo territory, North Kivu, demonstrated on Monday in the city of Goma demanding for food. According to Ndayabaje, one of the displaced living in Kanyaruchinya, they were in the street yesterday because of the lack of food, adding that their children are dying of hunger every day. Since June 2022, thousands of people have moved north to the city of Goma, fleeing clashes between the Loyalist Army and the M23 RDF rebels in Rushuru territory. For the time being, other civilians continue to reach the city from the western side from Masisi territory. The predominantly Tutsi M23 rebellion, which had been dormant for nearly a decade, resumed fighting in late 2021. Kinshasa accuses Rwanda of supporting it, which has been corroborated by UN experts, although Kigali denies it.
Moreover, international news, in observance of the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, an exhibition entitled Slavery, 10 True Stories of Dutch Colonial Slavery opened 1 week ago on Tuesday, 28th February at United Nations headquarters.
The exhibition has been made possible through a partnership of the United Nations Outreach Program on the Transatlantic Slave Trade and the Slavery Permanent Mission of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the UN. The head of history, Dr. Valika, said they wanted to show through this exhibition that this history belongs to all of us. He said that they are hoping that those 10 stories that they gathered will be the beginning of a larger conversation with millions of stories, because they understand that this at least 250 years of history and a large region that they have to speak about. Originally curated and displayed in 2021 by the Netherlands National Museum of Art and History, the adapted version, Slavery exhibition will be open to the public from 27th February to 30th March in the visitors lobby of the United Nations headquarters. The 10 True Stories exhibition focuses on slavery in the Dutch colonial era from the 17th of the 19th century in Brazil and the Caribbean, as well as in South Africa, Asia, and the Netherlands itself. It presents 10 true personal stories of people who were enslaved, people who profited from the system of slavery, and people who raised their voices against it.
Moving on, Ethiopians gathered in Addis Ababa on Thursday to celebrate the 127th anniversary of the Battle of Adwa, where federal forces defeated the Italian army trying to invade from the north in 1896.
The victory of Adwa prevented Italy from expanding its empire into the Horn of Africa. European colonial powers had divided up the majority of the African continent by the end of the 19th century. Ethiopia was the only African country not colonized by a European power as a result of the victory, leaving it as one of the few nations to remain free from the influences of Western colonization. The African kingdom annihilated the invading Italian army, killing close to 3,000 soldiers, including 2 generals. Nearly an equal number of Italian prisoners of war were put to work. The table was turned this time as Europeans labored under the supervision of Africans. The victory of Adwa had not been celebrated in the town for the past 2 years due to the conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia. However, following the peace agreement signed in South Africa to end the conflict in the region, the inhabitants of the town were able to mark this year's celebration peacefully.
Now, Nigeria's opposition leader Atiku Abubakar, who came second in a February 25th presidential poll, took to the streets on Monday, along with his supporters, to contest the election results.
The electoral body last week declared Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress as the winner to take from President Muhammadu Buhari in May. Almost 25 million people cast ballots in a vote that was largely peaceful but marred by long delays and technical glitches, angering voters in opposition parties who have claimed massive vote rigging. Abubakar's supporters and members of the People's Democratic Party dressed in black to walk to the Independent National Electoral Commission's headquarters in Abuja and submit a petition claiming electoral fraud. The commission has acknowledged technical difficulties on the day of the vote but rejects claims of fraud. The Labour Party's Peter Obi, who came in third in the election, has also rejected the results and said he was going to court to prove Nigerians he won the presidential race.
We take a quick break to come back with business, health and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right now. In a business news today, heads of states and officials from different nations met in Doha on Sunday for the opening of the 5th United Nations Conference on the least developed countries. We have more on this report.
The conference opened with remarks from the president of the conference, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, Emir of Qatar, in which he criticized delays of humanitarian aid to Syria following the devastating earthquake. Climate change and its effects on least developed countries was one of the main topics discussed during the opening. Sabah Korosi, president of the 77th session of the General Assembly, warned of the ominous effects of climate change on least developed countries, stating that the demand for water is expected to exceed supply by 40% by the end of the decade. In his address, the Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu thanked international support during the darkest days of the earthquake aftermath and credited least developed countries for being the first to help. The LDC conference held every decade was postponed in 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The 5th edition of the conference convenes for 5 days amid challenges facing the world as a result of Ukraine war, global food security crisis, climate change, and the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
In a health news today, while the world is interested in preserving endangered species, they don't share the burden of paying for it, according to a study published by the University of Queensland and Griffin University in Australia.
The research assessed 133 countries where 18 different carnivores ranged and found farmers in developing countries like Kenya were more likely to suffer financially compared to the countries like the US, Sweden, and Norway. The author of the study, published in Communications Biology, was led by conservation biologist Alexander. He explains how researchers compared the impact of economic loss between farmers in different parts of the world. Because farmers in developing countries are already under a financial squeeze, any loss they suffer has a more dramatic impact. However, he says not much thought has been put into studying the impact that these animals have on people who live close to them livelihoods. The cost of conservation is immense, and even raising funds from this falls short. The cost of conservation is immense, and even raising funds, setting up a fund to meet the needs of conservation in developing areas and to take care of the communities, there will be international support, finance and planning. Kenyan conservationist David Maskar said that the current system does not work because no governments have been able to pay the cost of compensation. He said that as long as local people are being forced to choose between the survival of their families or the animals killing the predators, will always be the easiest option.
In a sports news today, the Gambia and Senegal will contest this in the 2023 Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations final. This after the two teams won their respective semi-final matches on Monday.
In the game played at Suskana Authority Stadium, Senegal overcame Tunisia in the first semi-final clash, winning 3-0. Gambia, on the other hand, fought hard to edge past record winners Nigeria. Senegal made light work of Tunisia, with Lamine Camara scoring a double before captain Papa Diop added the other goal. Gambia, on the other hand, benefited from an early goal scored by Adama. Bojang scored the lone goal to make a historic feat. Despite ending the game with a player less following the dismissal of defender Haronanji, the Baby Scorpions held on to win. Senegal and the Gambia will face off in the final on 11th March 2023, while Nigeria will play Tunisia in the third-place playoff. It should be noted that all the four aforementioned teams will represent Africa at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup, slated for May this year in Indonesia.
It is at this particular moment that I thank you for being with us and always joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.